Good morning everyone. Today we will discuss about the history chapter 1, the modern period. Children, let you know what is history. History is the study of changing patterns in society. No two periods are alike in history. It is the study of change. The history of a country divided into the ancient, medieval, and modern periods. Over the last 2 years, you have introduced to the ancient and medieval periods of Indian history, and this year you will learn about the modern period of Indian history, and this is usually considered to begin with the conquest of India by the British in the 18th century, extending till India became independent in 1947. Now, what is important in history? First thing is time in history. Dates in history are linked to events. For some events, for example, battles, specific dates can be assigned, but for some process, there can be no fixed dates. These processes take place over a long period of time, and we can only assign centuries to them. A span of time is more important in history rather than an exact date. A few decades ago, history was political, and it is easier to define dates for events in political history. And children, we know the different revolts by the years. For example, revolt of 1857. But for social, economic, and cultural history, specific dates are not mentioned. For example, when the feeling of nationalism was started among the people, exact date we cannot know. So children, remind it, in history, 4 questions are important. First thing is what, second when, third where, and the fourth one is how the incident happened. Second importance is periods in history. The way our ancestors lived was very different from now we live now. And so, to characterize these changes, historians have divided history into 3 periods: ancient, medieval, and modern. The 18th century is generally taken as the starting point of the modern period, and these we can say these are the defining features of the modern era are: first one is scientific progress, second is industrialization, third one is colonization, and fourth one is urbanization. Next importance of history is interpretation in history. Interpretation means understanding. We can see in history, interpretation differ between individuals and group of people. For example, According to British historians, the main reason for the revolt of 1857 was Sepoy Mutiny. It means some sepoys of the East India Company revolted on the issue of grease cartridge. In the next chapters, you will read about detail about the grease cartridge. Children, in short, I am telling you, uh, actually the rumor was spread between the sepoys that the cartridge was coated with pig and cow fat. That is why sepoy they revolted. But according to Indian historians, the real reason for the revolt was exploitive nature of the British. So, there are differing opinions and interpretation in history. We should not rely on only one sources but should also look at other sources. Now children, to know about the history, some important sources of information are there. First one is archaeological sources and second is literary sources. About the archaeological sources you have read in your previous classes. Archaeological sources examples are artifacts, manuscripts, coins. Archaeological sources they are of less importance for the study of modern period, and of the three periods of history, modern history has the most abundant sources of information. About the literary sources, for the study of modern period, literary sources are of greater importance. You can take the example of the literary sources, original documents like government reports, administrative records, official records of the British Survey, and a lot of material have been carefully preserved in archives and museums. Now, children, what do you mean by official records? In the previous class, you have read about Mughals and they introduced the culture of recording everything. British officials they were very particular about keeping proper records of all official transactions. And many of the official records are preserved in the National Archives of India. Now next sources is survey reports. Survey means anything in an organized manner. British also practice different types of survey like population survey, revenue and land survey. Maps were the best important part of these surveys. For example, presently also you can see medical survey. Our medical survey teams, they are collecting reports of COVID-19 from door to door. Next one is indigenous records. Under British rule, diaries, accounts of pilgrims and travelers, newspaper, books, novels, they reflect the feeling of Indians. Newspapers, they were published in English and in vernacular languages. Vernacular means in local languages so that local people they can understand easily. Now children, I hope you understood the chapter. Some conclusion of the chapters are given here. In the next chapter, you will read about the establishment of British colonial rule and the fight we put up against it. We will study the socio-cultural changes that came about in India under the influence of British. We will read about the rise of nationalism in India, which ultimately led to India becoming a free nation. Thank you.